Now we're going to start working on the fronts. We have our 7mm hex key. That's as much as it wants to wind out, right? Something like that. Now I can pop this sucker up. My brake line is still connected, but that's okay. I just want to get a look at these brake pads for now. But the caliper itself, actually that looks pretty good. The rubber seal around the caliper is all screwed up though. The rubber seal around the piston is messed up and not seated correctly, so there goes some of your pressure. This is not right here. The guide pin is actually nice and lubricated. Everything looks okay there. And there's no pins, there's no springs. We have the clips. Let's take that out. Ooh. What the hell is that? Yeah, there's no pad. How's the other one? The other one still got just a hair of pad. This thing is done. The top has a large groove cut in it. These front brake pads are shot. So they put new brake pads on the rear, but not on the front. And the fronts are the more important pads. Holy Jesus. Good Lord, man. That's what happens when you don't change your brake pads. God, I can imagine the noise that was making. Well, that's where all the metal's coming from. The clips on the fronts are different than the clips on the back. And these are just the retaining clips right here. But you want your spring clips in here that keep your pads open. Lots of rust. We're still going to use Andy's MX6 calipers though. These are coming off no matter what. But first we have to clamp off the brake line the same way that we did on the rear. I'm probably going to clip it off back here just so that it's a little out of the way. Clamp that off. Go ahead and rotate this down. We got to get this bolt. I'm guessing that's probably going to be a 12. It's actually kind of loose for a 12. Oh, it's because this thing's been stripped. I got to get my hammer in here and hammer the crap out of this. Now watch out for those copper washers again. Get a rag to lay down here just in case there's a little bit of leakage. Oh! Shit. This is not clamped off properly. Well, that's what happens when you don't clamp off your line correctly. That was way too much brake fluid. That's actually good looking brake fluid too, so that's a good sign. It's not really a big deal because I have to bleed every single line anyway. Okay, now that I have that screw out, you can see there is still a washer, copper washer. I want to save that if I can. Man, this thing is gunked into place. See, this sticks inside of that little hole there. That's just to keep it in place. That just keeps it held in place so it does not twist. Now I should just be able to slide this caliper right off. This thing is just got tons of fluid in there. Tons of fluid. Next I'll go at these two. That way I can get my rotor off. That's going to be a 17. Still a little loose, but whatever. Shit. I might need my breaker for that. I do not want to round that off. Oh, shit. That's a first. It's actually a perfect example of why those lights suck. Oh, man. My socket flew right into the light socket. That's what happens when you end up with rounded off bolts that are loose. You have to press down on it straight, just right. Ugh. There we go. And removing the brake line is not going to help me here because it's actually the brake line bracket that's going to be in the way of my socket. I had to get a 1/2 inch socket, as I was saying. So I went to Advance and got a half height impact socket set. Because there's not enough room between the brake hose bracket and this bolt, you have to have a 1/2 size socket. You need a 6-point. Instead of spending 50 bucks on a new 1/2-inch ratchet set, I just went up to Advance, got this, 20 bucks for the whole set, definitely worth it. And that cracked loose the very first use. It was just so easy when you have the right leverage. Okay, there's the caliper bracket. Voila. See how the ends of these threads are kind of mushroomed a little bit? They're flat, whereas these are nice and thin. If these are not going to fit all the way on because they're stripped, that's an issue. Let's say you have one loose wheel stud because the threads are stripped on one of those studs. It's not going to compress the rotor evenly. That rotor is not going to be tight right here. You'll get uneven wear as it goes around. It only seems to be that one. Alright, we are going to attempt to clean this magnetic shavings from the brake pads. I really don't know of a better way to clean this. If anyone has any suggestions, I'm all ears. Ow! Okay, can't be too rough with it. These are metal shavings after all, and they hurt. I guess that's good enough for now, huh? Everywhere. Dirt. Everywhere. This thing looks like it was... like they broke the wheel off and drove it into the dirt. I just want to show you the difference in the inner thickness, which is the problem with these rotors here. These were completely worn down on the inside of the rotor. The outside thickness is much thicker than this thickness. But we don't have that issue here. It's even on both sides. It's a little rusty, but that rust will come right off. First time that you use the brakes and those pads grip onto that surface, it'll spin that rust right off. Get off as much as you can with brake clean or a rag, and then just leave it like that and install it. The hard part is actually getting this hole to line up. You have to keep it in the channel here. So that's the first one. And don't forget, you have to put your rotor inside the bracket before you install your bracket. Otherwise, you're going to have to take your bracket off, then put your rotor in, and then put your bracket back on. Good and tight there. That is really close up here. What's next? Lube. Hey. This is the only surface that the pad will contact, so that's, you don't have to do the face here, you just have to do that seat. Same on the bottom. Crap, didn't adjust the camera angle last time, did I? Sorry about that. So you just have to get that area there. Okay, install the brake pads, and these indicators here will only go on the inside. You can't fit them in this direction, and that's not going to happen anyway because the wheel is going to be behind here. I'll take this, and I'll just put a little bit in here. On both sides. And then you basically just spread your lube around on this back surface here, which I forgot to explain in my last video because the video didn't record. Just basically gotta seat these in here. This is the hardest part, is messing with all this junk. Alright, that side's in. The springs are the last thing that you put in before you clamp down your caliper because you have to hold your brake pads squeezed together. Otherwise, those springs will make the pads spring outwards. So you have to hold it as you put your cover back on. Fortunately, I am using ND28's MX6 calipers. Like a good Mazda owner, ND28 actually has all of his hardware, including his spring clips. I'm pretty happy about that. Good job, Andy. Thank you. All right, we're going to go ahead and remove our banjo bolt. So we'll just take our C-clamp, run it down. Now you can see that going inside. Alright, now we're fully compressed. So now that we're fully compressed, we can just take it out. That's about how far in it goes, which is basically just flush with the lip. Use my banjo bolt on the Dremel, mark it cut it, notch it. Okay, got my notches in there. And so let's take our caliper and the banjo bolt and go over the car. Now we can just let that sit there for a second. Work on other things, namely the banjo bolt. This line I can already see still has the copper washer on there. And the other side does not, so I'll put the copper washers on both sides. Are you looking right in the light, by the way? Be a little better. So we're spinning this brake line on from the back. Can't see where my notches are. Oh, I'm way the hell over there. Oh, that actually looks like it's lined up just right there. So voila, that's how I think it should be done. After my last video, some guys said it doesn't really matter. To me, I mean, it's hydraulic fluid. You want it to get to where you want to go as fast as possible, unless you need higher pressure in order to get that piston, in which case you would want it actually turned sideways so the notches line up opposite of the brake line. Honestly, I think it's supposed to go right through it. It just makes the most sense to me. Okay, now comes the tough part. Now I need to put our clips in and hold them with our hands. Okay, that's the top. And the bottom. And then we just fold the caliper over. Voila. Now the only thing left is to tighten everything down, torque it to spec. Now we got everything all hooked up right. Oh man, that's tough. Oh, and there's no adjuster bolt involved on this side. The adjuster is only on the rear. It's automatic, baby. I think that's good. Should be good to go. And that's how you do the front caliper. And I'm just going to repeat the same process on the other side. Chloe's KL Restoration Day 9. Up next, ABS sensor, slave cylinder. And for those of you who are like, well, why doesn't he film the other side? Expect to find exactly the same thing on the other side. I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to click like, subscribe, and you can follow along on the adventure of Chloe's KL 626 Restoration. And I'm just going to use this completely scorched brake pad as my thumb. Cool.